The first step I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the seat post, and I'm going to remove. These pads are made to come off very easily, so you can clean under there, by the way. And I'm gonna lift up the deck because it will be much easier for me to get to this with the deck up versus trying to take the battery box off and work underneath like this, which I certainly could do, but you'll soon see why it's better just to go ahead and lift the deck. Lifting the deck is not hard, folks. For whatever reason you have to do it. There is a screw with a corresponding nut underneath, 3 on each side. If you remove the seat post and you remove the deck, remove those screws, this whole deck will lift up and giving you easy access to everything. We've tried to make this very, very easy for folks. You all probably noticed I'm missing my wheels. They are not wheelie bars. A lot of times people say that. These are for loading. You can tip it up and roll the back end even higher than the wheels will allow. I took these off because I do a lot of off-roading, and it just gave me even a little bit more clearance, because I really, as you've seen by my videos, I really get into some stuff with this bike. Okay, moving right along. As you see, I pulled off the pads, the foot pads, and I have removed the screws. I also removed the cover so that I could tilt this up further. You'll soon see why I decided to take the deck off to change this. Very difficult to work like this. By the way, if this ever gets loose, which it does, let me tell you how it happens, folks. Over time, when you go to charge it and you try to, these are keyed. You see the little notch there? When you're spinning to try to find it in time, you can work these loose. And it's tough to tighten this from under here. There's a backing nut. You'll see in a moment. But this is what the underneath looks like. Very neatly bundled. Very well made. And this, I'm trying to do this one-handed, so bear with me. This will just lift up like so. Now you understand why I took the, well, you will in a minute, why I took the battery cover off. You can unplug the battery right here. This is how you plug in and unplug your battery. By the way, if you ever have a problem, your scooter isn't running for some reason, one of the first things to check is to make sure that this plug is secured and it didn't vibrate loose, either in transport or through your rough riding. But now, as you see, I can now lift this up and get to that piece very, very easily. Now, I'm having a hard time seeing here. I've got some sunshine, so bear with me, folks. I think it's in the frame. Right. Let me find my finger here. All right, I'm really struggling. Right there. Okay, there's the piece. If you can see that. Right there. There we go. Sorry. Cameraman, I'm not. And now that I've got the cover off, you can see much easier to get to that nut if you need to tighten it or to replace this piece, as I'm doing today, with the deck up and off. Okay, so there you go. Now, these pieces that we sell you, if you do need the part, they come with a red and a black wire already attached, so you don't have to solder this. I will be soldering into these wires because that's just how I do things. You can crimp them though. I just prefer things to be soldered and heat shrunk. It's just the right way to do it. I'll never have to worry about it again. Make sure, little hint, you put the red wire to the red wire and the black wire to the black wire. You can do it the other way, but you'll get a little surprise. It'll be 4th of July. Just like on a car, make sure you put the right wire to the right wire when you replace the piece. While I've got the cover off, something I pointed out in another video, so if this is repetitive, I apologize. It cost me about $49. What I did, because of the, well, abuse that I put this thing through, being the crash dummy, test dummy, I actually had this, the welds were fine, but I actually had a plate welded under here at a welding shop. I don't know if you can see that well. Let me see if I tilt this up. Okay. Just to even more reinforce this seat post, because again, as you've seen by my videos, I really put this thing through its paces. Now, if you're a bigger boy and you know who you are, not a bad idea to do. It's not necessary. Our bikes are very well made, but you know, if you're a tinkerer and you like to weld, or if you know a welder, that's called a six-pack job. I just had a little extra plate welded here for additional support. Okay, tools needed to do the job in an expert fashion. I've got my soldering iron, a little bit of solder. I've got my wire strippers, and of course my piece. Now, I'm going to cut the wires so that I have enough room to solder this piece. In other words, I'm going to cut these. Oh, you know what? I'm going to give myself some slack. I'm actually going to cut these right here. Now, even though the battery is disconnected, there is a capacitor on here. So I would recommend, as long as you cut one wire at a time and don't try to cut them both at the same time, you should have no sparking or no fear of anything like that. It's DC, it won't hurt you, but it'll scare the hell out of you if it does pop. So I'm going to go ahead and take my my trusty cutters. I'm going to cut the red wire first. Just kidding. And then I'm going to cut the black wire. Now what I'm going to do is use the same strippers, strip these back. I'm going to strip the wires on this piece. Now I brought these out to show you, well, I'll actually put them away. If you don't want to get fancy, you can use what's called a butt end crimp. And you could simply bare some wire here, bare some wire there. I would say about a quarter of an inch of bare wire with the strippers. And you simply put these together like that inside of one of these with the appropriate size, and go ahead and use a pair of crimpers and squeeze her on down. But in my case, I'm going to go ahead and solder these, and I'll show you the finished job. It's going to be hard for me to solder and hold the camera phone at the same time, but you'll get the drift. If you do want to solder, I will tell you this. Once I bare these wires, the way that I do, and I've done on boats and things and electronics for many, many years, I go ahead and bare the wires about that much on each one. And then I twist them together, okay? First of all, you want to put your heat shrink on before you twist them together and solder them, because you want to be able to slide the heat shrink over top of your soldered joint. I'll show you the finished product. Something I also wanted to point out while I had the thought, for troubleshooting purposes, if you ever, let's say you're plugging in your scooter and your charger's saying green, but yet the scooter has no charge. Understand, if you plug the charger into the wall, and you'll notice if you don't plug it into anything, the charger will say green, because it's not sensing a load, it's not doing anything, and it's assuming that there's no amp draw to it, that your scooter's charged. Well, why I bring that up is this. A good place to check if you do have this situation where, daggone it, my scooter is not charged, but every time I plug the charger in, it seems to be working. You want to make sure that one of these wires hasn't broken. Now, they have heat shrink over them, which gives them some support, and it may not be detached, but if you slightly wiggle them, and if it moves very, very easily, see, these are pretty, you can tell that that's still soldered. Then you have a break in that wire. It's a good troubleshooting technique that I wanted to point out. Something else, you see I put the heat shrink tubing, as I mentioned, before soldering these wires together there. Also, make sure that your little nut that's going to secure this is on before you solder these together, or else you'll have to cut them and resolder them to put the nut on, which holds the mechanism in place. Another helpful hint, what you don't want to do is to go ahead and solder this like this, and I'll tell you why. Do you see how this is? It pulls out this way. So make sure that you place this like this, otherwise again, you'll say, oh, daggone it, I need to cut those wires and put it in the proper orientation. So once again, in review, guys, this part goes on the outside. This nut retains it, keeps it from sliding back in. My nut that holds it on the back side is already on my wires, and I'm simply going to secure these wires to there. Now you see also why I took the deck off, so that I had room to work. There is an example of what I meant about twisting the wires together. Let me move it so that I don't know how well the video will show it, but at any rate, I bare a little bit more than a quarter inch because I intended to twist these together and have a little room to work. I'm going to hit that with some solder now. Now, for most of you, I am working on both wires at the same time. I'm used to doing this.
A good safety practice would be to you can cut them both, but only bare either both reds or both blacks. If you worked one wire at a time, there's no chance of these shorting out. So that's probably a good little thing. So if you do one, then do the other is what I recommend. I'm going to hit that with a little solder and heat shrink it, and we're going to button this up. Now before I do, I'm going to do a double check here. My connector is on the proper side. Heat shrink is on, so that once these are connected, all I have to do is slide it up, and the nut is in proper place so that once all finished, I can secure the connector. Okay, I went ahead and soldered the two pieces together. Now I'm going to slide over my heat shrink, like so. I'm even going to put, since I have plenty on here, I'm going to put it over the other heat shrink a little bit as well. And I'm going to take my heat gun. Heat gun's not a bad thing to own, folks. For things like this, yes, you can use a lighter or use the radiant heat soldering iron to shrink that heat shrink tubing, but you want to be very, very careful doing that. Heat guns aren't that expensive. You don't have to get a Milwaukee, but that's just how I roll. I'm going to go ahead and heat shrink that now. Okay, here we go. Again, the heat gun just lets you control the heat a little bit better. As you see, that's shrinky dinking down. And you don't want to overdo it. You can see where it got thinner where the solder is, because of course it's thinner than the insulated wire. You can see a nice heat shrink joint there and there. And that's finished. I'm going to do the same thing with the black. Okay, I've heat shrunk both wires. Why did I extend the heat shrink up over the other heat shrink? Well, because I could. Heat shrink is cheap, and that just gives it even a little more strength over here at the joint area. Now I'm simply going to slide the nut up and over, screw it to the back of the connector. I'm going to make the little keyed part down. Not that it matters, but I'm just going to put it back the way it was in that orientation like that. I'm going to go ahead and tighten this nut on the back, and voila, it's done. Now, for those of you out there to say, you know, there's always some grumpy Gusses and everything. Oh, he talks so much. What does he think we're stupid? Understand something. Not everybody's an electronics tech or handy, so I really, I do my best to make this as simple and easy as possible, leaving no stone unturned to save you guys any kind of work, or just to walk you around the puddles, as they say. Again, I have to re-emphasize, you will never have to do this on another scooter. That is because they will not be running long enough for anything ever to wear out. These are not throwaway scooters, and they are designed and built very ruggedly to last you a long, long time. We want our 5-star scooter family to be happy and have a long life enjoying the scooters.